and welcome everyone to this month's Connect with Remedy monthly webinar. Today we're going to cover the Remedy 9104 feature release, and during the presentation, if you have questions, you can ask them in the Q&A pod, and our panelists will answer them during the session. If there's any questions you want to ask live at the end, we will open up the lines to ask any questions you may have at that time. Right now, I will turn it over to our product management team and Peter Adams.
Thank you, Greg, and welcome everybody. From my side, I'm Peter Adams, Director of Product Management for the Remedy product family, and joining with me today are Rahul, Vedak, and Rick Nelson from my team. And yeah, we are very excited to share with you what's new in our fall release cycle, specifically the Remedy 9104 feature release. We have lots of material, so I want to dive right into it. And as Greg mentioned, there's opportunity to ask questions in the Q&A panel and at the end of the webinar, right? So we are approaching the end of the year, and I thought it's a good opportunity to say thank you to all of you for your support in 2017, right? In the fall timeframe, it's also always a very busy time for us on the product management side, right? We have lots of customer events across the different region. You know, that we always engage in the BMC communities, and we really, appreciate all your engagement, whether it's, sometimes challenging, sometimes praise of, components that you like. We'll, appreciate all of it, and please continue to provide us that feedback again, whether it's positive or negative. That's a very important part of us, and we certainly appreciate your business and your commitment to the Remedy platform. Again, just felt that it's a good opportunity to say thank you as we're approaching the end of the year. As I mentioned before, we have a full program, so I'll start providing a bit of context for this 9104 release and talk a bit about our new CMDB user experience. Our esteemed colleague, Stephen Earle, couldn't make it today, so I'll take over that part. And then we go into the various areas of our Remedy suite here, from the Remedy platform, single sign-on, smart reporting, ITSM apps, etc. So there's lots of material. And towards the end, I'll give an outlook into what is coming very soon, because two components of that suite have not been released yet, but we do want to give you a heads up, and there'll be follow-up webinars coming along for those components as well. So if you attended any of our custom events or were participating in any recent roadmap presentation, you probably have seen this slide before. It's really a concise summary of the overall strategy that we have in the service management space, right? Over the past 4 to 5 years, we really evolved what was a classic ITIL-focused IT service management into what we call digital service management now, where we took advantage of all the new technologies around mobile, cloud, analytics, social concepts, etc., and provided a modern ITSM solution, right, with our investment in our digital workplace component. Used to be called MyIT, it's now called digital workplace, with our investment in the smart IT user experience for Remedy, in the various other adjacent products. Again, we provide a world-class ITSM solution that really addresses the challenges of that come with the digital transformation, right? And again, it's not that everything around ITIL goes out the door. We, of course, still care very much about it. So think of it more as an evolution, augmenting, the core ITIL-based capability with these additional modern digital capabilities, right? But, we are now in the transition to the next phase and are starting to roll out first capabilities of what we name cognitive service management, and we believe it's significant enough shift and leap ahead again to give it a name on its own. So here we're making use of cognitive technologies, whether it's virtual assistants, chatbots, machine learning, and more, into really taking advantage to significantly improve the overall user experience, but also productivity for both business users as well as the IT users who are providing a service. And as you'll see later on in this webinar, we are delivering first capabilities in this cycle, right? So this release here that we present today is really a key significant step towards that vision of cognitive service management. And we call it the fall release cycle because it's actually delivered in two phases. 9.104, the core Remedy stack has been released on December 5th, so last week, and that's the key focus for the presentation here today. Those items in the yellow boxes, right? But we have additional things coming. One is the new version of Smart IT, and we'll give a bit of a preview again towards the end of the presentation. And then we also have a new exciting component coming out that's called multi-cloud service management, which is an add-on to Remedy to enable you to collaborate in a multi-cloud, multi-provider setup, so that you can broker incidents or integrate with agile software development tools. Again, I'll give a preview of that. You'll learn a lot more about this, as these solutions come out, but at least you get some first insight into it. But again, for the items that are in these yellow boxes, specifically our innovation around the CMDB user experience, which is focused around this configuration manager persona, our first capabilities in Remedy space around cognitive when it comes to auto classification, right? And our significant investment in the platform to reduce, total cost of ownership and simplified administration. That's really the core of the presentation today here. One thing I do want to mention here, as we may have noticed, we are using the term feature release here, right? In general, for Remedy, and some of you may have heard about this, we are moving towards a new approach how we deliver releases to our customers. We are moving towards a model where we deliver on a predictable schedule every 6 months feature releases that deliver a whole set of new innovation. And you can really consider this release here, even though it uses the 9.104 versioning terminology, as the first step towards this new strategy, right? So consider this again a feature release with lots and lots of capabilities. We'll only touch on the highlights here in this webinar today. There's a lot more, and as always, you can read up on it in the documentation spaces, right? In the release notes, there's always a very detailed overview of what is new in a release. We'll share more recordings, et cetera, et cetera. So there's much more going on than what you'll hear here. But again, this is, think of it as the first release of a sequence of feature releases that are going to be easy to adopt and that all have meaningful enhancements. And again, we're providing these on a regular schedule so that you can plan ahead and know when the next capability is coming out, right? Also, it means that, again, they're easy to adopt as we continue to invest in capabilities that make it easy to upgrade, especially when you're on the latest code line 9.1. That's always beneficial. And overall, most of these capabilities are additive, so we don't plan to make big technology changes underneath, right? And both of that will lead to an easy adoption of those new capabilities, right? So again, that strategy will continue in 2018, 2019. We'll deliver these on a regular schedule, and you can plan ahead for these upcoming releases. Right? So with that said, let's dive into the details here. And the topic that I'm going to start about is our new CMDB user experience. something very, very exciting, a significant new update as what we had introduced with My IT a couple of years ago around the business user and with Smart IT around the ITSM users. We are now delivering for the configuration manager persona, right? So the goal was the same, to deliver a very modern, innovative web user experience, but again, using this persona-based design approach with a focus on configuration manager / CMDB administrator. We wanted to simplify the overall user experience for the CMDB, right? Take a lot of the flows out and simplify them so that it can be very productive as a configuration manager and have all the relevant information immediately inside, right? Of course, basis on the latest UI technology, and then use this also as a basis for other consumer personas later on. So the CMDB, of course, is all about who consumes the data, and the configuration manager is a very important stakeholder here, but they are not the only ones who are using corresponding information from the CMDB. So this is really the basis for further enhancements that will serve other personas, right? But again, for this release, the focus was clearly on the configuration manager, Chris, as we call him, and it was really a target towards the challenges that this persona faces, right? So we did a lot of research, as we did for, again, for digital workplace or for Smart IT. That is a very important part of our design process, to do extensive persona research. And as part of that, we're learning about specific challenges and can come up with very innovative ways how to solve these challenges. For example, how to very quickly identify and troubleshoot any kind of issues with data flow into the CMDB or taking it out of the CMDB. That is important, right? And so this kind of transparency about the quality of the data, again, how the data flows into it, where there were issues, who's consuming it. This kind of transparency is really was the focus for the release, and is really what's really new and exciting about this UI, right? So here you can see an example how this looks like. Again, highly modern web user experience. The first page that you'll see is what we call the CMDB configuration manager dashboard, and you'll notice here on the screenshot that you immediately see with these pie charts or donuts, as they're sometimes called, right, and the health bar and the data flow funnel, right? You immediately see as a configuration manager, is your CMDB healthy? Were there any issues with the data coming into the CMDB or going out? And then you see these blue labels basically are all clickable hyperlinks, so you can very easily, if there is an issue, drill down into the specifics and analyze, where exactly things were going wrong, etc. Right? Of course, we're also looking at, we're also delivering ways how to configure elements of your CMDB. Right? That's an important part of the configuration manager job, and that again is obviously available in the same great modern experience. Right? So again, the key new innovation is that we provide with a very quick glance insight into the integrity, in the completeness, in the overall health basically of the CMDB, and allow you to analyze situations when there are issues, right? That's the key new innovative part that really no other vendor has in the industry, right? One thing you'll notice as well is this little blue pop-up here on the screen, and so one thing when you go into this new UI, you'll see that there's a guidance within the UI that walks you through the different new features and capabilities. Something that really helps you to catch up very quickly on what the new UI delivers and what these concepts are. And then as you're drilling down into specific areas, you have all the details available very quickly are able to filter into specific areas with this ribbon. So, these boxes on top of the table are basically all clickable and allow you to very quickly filter out specific elements, right? Which CIs, for example, were updated as part of a reconciliation job, for example, right? So again, highly productive for the configuration manager because it's really designed according to the job responsibilities and the challenges that they're experiencing with lots of new innovative concepts. It's not just a nicer looking UI on what we had traditionally provided as a CMDB UI. It really introduced a number of exciting new concepts. And again, with this in-app help, this user guidance that is available for users as they walk through this the first time, right? So highly recommend, if you have a chance and you've downloaded the 9.104 software, that you take a look at it as part of the new release, right? With that, I'd like to hand over to Rahul Vedak for insights about what the key platform enhancements are.
Hey, thanks, Peter. So, in fact, some of the content about install and upgrade is very well aligned with your slide about, the regular release canons for Remedy. Both the enhancement that I'll delve deep today, in fact, are aimed at helping our customers and partners to seamlessly consume these product updates. And the first one is Zero Downtime Upgrade. Before I get into the how part of this Zero Downtime Upgrade, let's talk about what are current options for Remedy upgrade. Today, by and large, we have two methods of upgrade that most of you would follow. The first, in-place upgrade. Here you take planned outage, upgrade your production with a newer version, and go live with the new version after some testing. The second, the most prevailing is the stage upgrade. Here the window of outage is shorter because there's a production scale staging environment running in parallel. So typically downtime here is limited to flip the staging as production. But the essence of both of these upgrades, they require some downtime. And the repercussions of this downtime are many, but the biggest being the service disruption that sometimes limits your ability to upgrade Remedy to the latest feature-rich or the most stable version of Remedy. And this is where Zero Downtime Upgrade for the platform is going to help you. So as phrase indicate, Zero Downtime Upgrade is essentially upgrade of ER platform, including the CMDB, in a manner that users of Remedy application, be it Remedy ITSM application or your custom application, that continues to available to the users to log incidents or let's say for the services agent to continue to service users and resolve their issues. So essentially, this is a Remedy platform upgrade without any disruption to your business. Again, Zero Downtime Upgrade is not a new topic for most of us. We heard some of you were following this method for upgrade even before BMC officially started offering this in Remedy 9.1. So to quickly recap, the way Zero Downtime works is essentially it leverages some of the failover for Remedy as part of the server group and upgrades one server at a time in the server group. So while a specific server that is getting upgraded, it is not available for any user or integration traffic, and other servers do that job instead. So that's a very simplified, non-technical description of how Zero Downtime works. So while Zero Downtime is ongoing, there are some restrictions for the administrator. So there are some admin operations not allowed during the upgrade, like no metadata changes or any other configuration changes are limited during the primary server upgrade. But while no one disputes the value of upgrade platform without any application outage, there were some operation issues with the existing methodology of zero downtime upgrade. One, it was a lot of manual steps. Two, you can't roll back if you see any issues during the upgrade, and then you couldn't restart if you have faced some upgrade issues, or if you're trying to rerun installer, then you have to manually clean up some of the upgrade failure. You have to clean up the file system, etc., before you starting it again. So what changed in Zero Downtime Upgrade in this release? In one line, I would say this: we have automated most of the process for Zero Downtime Upgrade. So we have added capabilities and also automated some of the things. The first one is, when you start with Zero Downtime Upgrade process, system backup existing binaries. And this backup of all the binaries is a fallback. So if upgrade were to fail for any reason, we essentially wipe out new binaries and restore the existing binaries which were available. So very quickly, you are able to back to a working version of the platform. Also, when upgrade fails, since there is no mix-up of binaries, there is no kind of SP3 and SP4 binaries kind of got together, the administrator can rerun that installer after fixing the root cause of the upgrade failure. There are no additional activities for the administrator to start the reinstallation. And while I'm talking about the binary related changes, I'm sure there are some of you who are typing in the chat window asking what happens to the database changes. So let's talk about that. System actually will not roll back any database changes. So if you have upgraded to SP4, or you try to do the upgrade for SP4, all the database changes will remain for SP4. And the reason is we have been consciously making the database changes in the backward compatible fashion since Remedy 9. So as a result of this, you can very well have a previous version of binaries, let's say SP3, that is working seamlessly with the newer version of the database table. So database tables can maybe at the SP4 level. Also, to ensure secondary servers can be restarted at any point of time during the Zero Downtime Upgrade, we have made changes to the installer so that the DB version string in the databases are auto-restored. And then there are a couple of more things we have automated for Zero Downtime. The stuff that will be done by the system itself, like there are some non-backward compatible changes like updates to SHA-256 or FTS index. These activities will be done after the upgrade is complete by system itself. So this is how in the workflow it will look like. You might start with your upgrade of your mid-tier, and once that's done, you will probably prepare the server group for upgrade. And I'll talk about what the preparation could be in the next slide. Then you have the AR server which is getting upgraded, its success. You continue with the CMDB upgrade, you successfully do it. You do the ATM integrator upgrade, and then you will apply the reconciled D2B package for any customization. At this point of time, you will go back to start upgrading the secondary servers. When you're doing the secondary server, the process remains by and large the same, except that there are no D2B changes that you'll add, and you'll continue with this cycle till the last secondary server is upgraded to the newer version. Now, one thing in the Zero Downtime Upgrade is, say you upgraded your AR and CMDB with Zero Downtime Upgrade, and everything went fine, but let's say in the ATM integrator there was some failure, then the system is not going to put you in a situation where your half of the stack, the AR and CMDB is on the newer version, upgraded version, and ATM integrator is on the previous version. Actually, the system will roll back the entire thing, including the AR and CMDB, to the previous version. Once you fix the issue, you will be able to restart the upgrade process, and you will be able to complete all the three components in the next run. So the value of this method is, at any point of time, you will not have an inconsistent or incompatible platform for your users. So before you kind of get started with zero downtime, I think we called it out, but this is only for platform. This is not available for ITSM applications. So essentially, AR CMDB ATM integrator can be upgraded in the zero downtime fashion. This is available. A lot of the automation that we talked on previous slides is available when you're upgrading from some version of Remedy 9 to 9.104 release. If you're upgrading from 8.1 or 7x, then you can still do this zero downtime upgrade, except that you'll have to follow some manual steps. And the other one is there is file system which will get backed up. So you will need to provide some disk space. The installer will provide you with the guidance as whether you have enough space for that activity. And then when you are upgrading, you might want to add a new server for that that time of upgrade. Just to make sure that you're not less on the computing power. Let's say if you have 4 servers, one of them is getting upgraded, essentially you have only 3 servers which are handling requests. So you have kind of losing 25% of computing for all the requests. So you might want to have one more server added in the server group just for the upgrade duration, and then after upgrade you might want to retire that one. So that was about the zero downtime upgrade. Clearly, there is great value in the zero downtime upgrade because there is no interruption to the ITSM. Your users, IT staff can continue to access it. There is a resiliency that we have built in. Your applications will not face outage. At the same time, you have a working version of platform available at any point of time. And then why this matters is with the regular releases for Remedy that Peter talked about, you will be able to consume those releases without any downtime of the platform. So let me talk about the second topic related to upgrade, which is about the patching and hotfixing for the Remedy. So let's talk about the current experience first, where if you have to patch Remedy, whether it's a hotfix, which is largely a manual process, which involves going through the README file, importing the def file, and then importing ARX and copy jar file and so on. For patches, we have installer, but to apply this patch, admin need to go to each machine, patch the system, restart server, based on the type of fix. And this is clearly less than optimal operation experience because one, there is a downtime for running this installers. There's a significant manual effort for the administrators to kind of patch all the systems. So with that background, what is it that we are doing to address this this issue about the patching or hotfix? So we are kind of trying to solve this problem. There are definitely more than one way to solve this problem. The path we are taking here is extending the Remedy deployment manager for patching use cases. So essentially extending what's already available in Remedy and something that many of you are familiar with. And for some of you who haven't actively used the deployment management console, I'll quickly talk about how it works. So this console was introduced in Remedy 9 with the primary use case of taking the dev to production movement of data and code. So essentially how you promote your changes from dev to QA or QA to production, changes like the ER system objects, forms, workflow, packing lists, menus, or data, the forms and validation. And then we kind of quickly expanded that whole thing for SRM objects like in the SRD PGT. So this deployment management console provides you with that one single interface to build package that include any of these changes, export that package, and then you take that zip to the other environment and deploy it on the destination environment. And since this deployment management doesn't require any file system access, you can also segregate duties of administrators versus Remedy developers. So for easier patching use case, we are extending the same deployment management framework to also handle binaries and other things. So as a path forward, what BMC plans to do is they will, any future patch or hotfix for 9.104 release, will be actually available in the form of a deployable package, and this patch, which is now a D2B package, will be available to you to import in your environment. So what changed in the capability of the deployment management application here? So we added a couple of those capabilities. One, we talked about this, the patches and hotfix for platform, which essentially means the binary level update. So one, we have added some backend forms where we will store these binaries, and also there is a corresponding change in the UI where we have added new binary type object. There is another step of automation we have done. So unlike patch installer, which you need to run on each server, in case of deploying a D2P package or deployment package, it will automatically distribute to all servers in the group. So which means that you don't have to touch different servers to apply a patch or hotfix. Every server in the group will get patched one at a time and will restart automatically if needed. And you can monitor all of this progress of how patching is going on from a deployment management console itself. And for some of the technical folks here, the way we achieve this is with a new single point deployment module in AR. And the same, the single point deployment module in AR can be used for the primary deployment management use case as well, where you want to promote binary changes. Let's say you have some custom plugin that you want to push from your dev to prod. You can very well use this framework for those changes as well. Now, deployment management console also provides the rollback mechanism in case you see some issues with the code that you just promoted. So we have kind of started with the code rollback and then recently added support for the data rollback. But both of these required object modification lock to be enabled. So we have simplified this whole interaction with the object modification log, where we have added a new D2P client type which automatically turns on this so that rollback is always available to you for D2P promotions. And also when we talk about the binary file, I'm sure there will be one conflict that you will foresee is every organization will have some limitation in their Remedy deployment as what kind of file size or file types you allow, and it may not support some of the binary objects as attachment to your Remedy form. So we kind of override this with a new D2P client, where for D2P client your settings for file type and file size will be overridden. Also, there is a pre-checker or qualification for packages. This is primarily to safeguard system from any unintentional or an accidental update. For example, if you are applying a patch 1 for 9.1.04, then it will make sure that your system is on 9.1.04 and not on the 9.1.03 or some future releases. So it kind of does that validation. At the same time, it will be useful for rollback when you have patch 2, let's say, applied, and then someone is trying to roll back patch 1, it will kind of avoid the situation of you're leaving the system in an inconsistent state. And what is really more interesting for some of you to know is we've actually done one application patch release already. So 9.1.03.001, which is the patch 1 for Remedy 9.1.03 ITSM application, was released as a deployable package early this year. So it contained the packing list with forms, workflows, ARX file, README file that describe the changes in the patch. So while this approach is kind of patching using the deployment management appears kind of new for many of us, this is something already proven for Remedy application patches. And while I'm on this topic of deployment management, I'm quickly going to cover a few more things here, which is we did a couple of enhancements to the deployment management console. So we added rollback. We talked about that. It is not just the rollback of objects or the code, but also the rollback of data. The other enhancement is about email notifications. So for packages status update. So when a new package is being built or deployed or rolled back, you don't have to wait on the console for the, to check the progress of it, but you can set a email notification which will notify when the package operation is successful or if there is any failure. Similarly, there is archives now enabled for deployment packages with active usage of deployment manager. You may see multiple packages listed in your console, including the older ones. So we have enabled archive rules for deployment packages with a default age of 365 days. And after this age, if the package is in the deployed state, then it will get archived along with activity logs and pre-checks. And again, this 365 days is a default, but you can always modify that from the archive console. And then there are a few enhancements in the activity log and the usability enhancement around how you can select multiple objects when you're trying to select AR system objects in the packing list area. So with that, Rick, I'm going to hand it over to you to continue with some of the supportability and the cognitive area here.
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Rahul. Yeah, we've done a lot in the recent releases to simplify the Remedy administration and operations. And with this release, there are a couple of things that you'll be seeing. One of them is a fully supported capability. Another one is something that we've already had some questions about with regard to a technology that we're releasing into the communities. So with that, the first thing I'd like to talk to you about is a central log configuration. So effectively, one of the challenges that we know that many customers had is turning on and off logs across a server group. And historically, it's been very painful to determine what logging was on what box, and getting a consistent logging scenario across your server group and being able to very quickly and easily get to those logs. So we introduced this central log configuration, and as I mentioned, you can turn on and off logs across a server or a server group. You can pull in the logging on one server and apply it to a selected group of servers or all the servers in your group. You can choose the level of logging that you want to do at each, in that space, and then choose the path that it's going to go to on the server. So it's all relative to that server, so you know where those logs are being stored as well. Another thing that we're introducing, and it says posted in VMC communities, but I was talking with Doug Mueller last night, and we're going to be getting that out in the next couple of days. I suspect that it will be by the end of the week. You'll see that in the communities. And effectively, we wanted to ease the monitoring and management of the Remedy system. So getting some visibility into server queues, getting start and stop processes. Again, this is another place where you can get to that same form that I just showed you to apply log settings. And there's some other capabilities within the admin console that help the overall management of Remedy. As part of this release, also we've managed to reduce the CPU resource utilization on the mid-tier by about 50%. So that was a significant improvement over where we were. So, we're making forward progress on resource utilization. We continue to do that across the board. With regard to it's not moving forward. With regard to all the cognitive work that we've been doing, this is another area that we invested quite a bit of time, and Peter talked about. This is kind of the direction that we're going, and you hear more and more about cognitive services across the industry. And so with 9104, I want to talk a little bit about kind of VMC's approach to cognitive service management, and then I'll talk about specifically what we did inside Remedy. For one, cognitive is really about taking machine learning and artificial intelligence and applying it to a given scenario. So in BMC's world, you've got on the left-hand side kind of that one machine learning capability, and through things like chatbots, virtual agents, the service management, automation, and predictive intelligence, all supported by a cognitive microservice on the platform. And I'll talk about each one of those in just a bit, and that subsequently is helping end users and agents and the platform itself all do their jobs more efficiently, and that's really what we're trying to do, is make sure that the end users get the best service they possibly can, and the agents can provide those services, and the platform can assist both agents and end users, whether that be through automated scripts or whether it be through interactions with end users to say, I want to do X, Y, or Z. So inside the Smart IT console, we've introduced for this release the capability of auto categorizing incidents, problems, changes, etc. Just categorization as a whole, when we started looking at the data, really there's a lot of things that get dumped into an other bucket, because either the categories are too broad, or someone's just in a hurry and they don't want to go through and try to find the correct categorization, so they just dump it into another bucket and figure, I'll create the ticket and it'll get to the right person eventually. Well, through this recommendations and cognitive recommendation, based on the description that the agent types in, it takes those keywords and subsequently, categorizes it based on what it thinks that its best estimate is as to where it should go, whether that be, and that's true across the operational, product, or resolution categories. I know it says categorize incidents, but like I said, you can do problems and changes and others. It all depends on what you train. So that's our first foray into the cognitive world inside Remedy, and then that categorization then assists with getting the incidents to the right group faster. Now, on the back end, the auto categorization, we've got Remedy and Smart IT on-premise or SaaS. The classification request goes up to our Innovation Suite cognitive service, and subsequently goes out to IBM Watson currently. Now, we've built it so that we can exchange other machine learning and AI vendors on the back end, but currently our integration is with the Watson Natural Language Classifier. And so all this folds through, and you can see the path. The classification request goes up and it comes back, and that's effectively how the information is getting, the recommendation is getting passed back into Remedy. So to get all this set up, you'd think that it would take quite a bit of work, but in reality, it's not nearly as painful as you might think. We've established inside the configuration admin console a configuration service management configuration form in the app admin, and then all that you need to do as part of the setup is you'll see in the cognitive service connection settings a username, password, a URL, and then whether or not you want to enable it. That's as simple as it gets. You might want to not enable the cognitive service right away. You may want to do some additional training or some additional testing or something like that. So this gives you the ability to turn it on and off without having to go to a lot of back-end forms. With regard to training, we are providing templates in there for the various modules. Like I mentioned, incident, problem, change. You can do this per company. You can create your own queries to generate the training data, and then as soon as you effectively build those training pieces, it gets sent up and trained. So that's it in a nutshell. Rahul, do you want to talk about single sign-on and smart reporting?
Sure. So if you can move to the next slide, please. So I'll quickly talk about the RSSO first. So RSSO 9104 release that supports the OAuth implementation. So OAuth 2.2 is an authorization framework for third-party applications. So the way it works is on behalf of an end user, a third-party application use the OAuth implementation to get limited access to an HTTP service. So for example, they can get access to a BMC application in our case. And the end user doesn't have to share his or her credentials, but only authorizes the third-party application to access the HTTP service. And for some of you who may not be very familiar with the OAuth, typically when the third-party application accesses the end user's resources, it could result in the issues such as some compromise of the password or resources, and that's where the OAuth framework itself kind of addresses this issue by having an authorization layer, and it separates the role of the client from the someone who owns that resource, and that's one of the reasons that the OAuth implementation is very widely used in the web, particularly for the cloud-based services. The other part of that OAuth is the authentication using the OpenID Connect, which is supported in RSS now. So OpenID Connect is essentially an authentication method built on the top of the OAuth protocol. And the benefit of OpenID is in mobile device authentication and then the cloud-based services. What is the cloud-based service is something that we are going to use for the Innovation Suite and Remedy ITSM integration. The major milestone for Remedy ITSM was integration with the BMC TrueSight family of the product. So TrueSight, some of the TrueSight products were using Atrium SSO in the recent past. With TrueSight 11 release that went out in October this year, RSSO becomes a key part of the TrueSight solution for all the authentication requirements. Talking about smart reporting, in this version we have added a handful of report and dashboard KPIs. Some of these KPIs existed even in the previous release, but there was no corresponding out-of-the-box report or dashboard for it, so hence they were not visible for most of the customers unless the administrator kind of goes and makes those available. So what we have done is we have added new report for these KPIs so that you can see those KPIs in your out-of-the-box content, and you can find more details on this KPI from the documentation wiki. Also for smart reporting, we have a new user sync utility. So we kind of have a Java-based utility for this, where it's essentially the backend task where the user information from AR system is automatically synchronized with smart reporting. So all of this interaction we are kind of we are doing based on the new Java-based utility for some of the performance and other issues. So Rick, that was a quick update on the RSSO and smart reporting. I think we'll have Peter to talk about the other ITSM upgrades.
Yes, hey, thanks Rahul. So next topic is around ITSM applications. Of course, a lot of our focus is around user experience, but we do provide enhancements around the ITSM application, specifically when it comes to configuration and administration, and have two exciting new capabilities here that I want to talk about. One thing is around the deployment management concept that we have introduced in Remedy 9. We already talked about using that now for patch deployments, including binaries, right? That was what Rahul had talked about earlier. But of course, the same concept is also used to package complex application configuration up into a package and then deploy that into production so that you don't have to touch a production system manually, right? So when you have complex configuration structures like SRDs or task group templates, etc. The best practice is always to package these up on a development environment. Or so first you build them on a development environment, then you package them up, bring them onto a test environment, you test them out, and once you see that the package works well, whatever you have configured is correct, then you can deploy that package into production, right? And so we've traditionally supported that for catalog items, SRDs, which are probably the most complex structure, so to speak, from an application configuration perspective. But with the 9.104 release, we're expanding this area again into task templates and task group templates. So that is something that as you build a package, you can select and then pick the corresponding task group templates or task templates and build a package, and then again use that for testing or then for production deployment, right? With all the benefits that such a deployment concept has, right? In terms of permissions, right? You can hand over the responsibility for production deployment for somebody on your operations staff that is active on the weekend, for example, rollback capabilities, etc. All these benefits that we have now provided as part of this deployment application are applicable then to this concept of putting a application configuration into production, so to speak, right? And again, as part of, not only did we support this new adding support to this task group template and task template concept, we also expanded overall the deployment application. Rahul had already mentioned, certain capabilities like email notifications, etc. We made usability enhancements, and again, also for the data concepts, we have a rollback capability, so to speak, right? So, and you can expect that we continue to build out this capability. In fact, as part of the roadmap, we have some exciting new things in plan here, right? The second topic that I wanted to mention here, and again, we're only highlighting the most important improvements here, is a new concept to define approval rules based on people CI relationships. So if you recall, very often specific people need to approve changes for specific CIs, let's say a change request, right? And in general, you can, of course, define an approval rule for a specific CI, but if you have to manage that across millions, that managing that at the individual CI level, such a rule is very tedious and has a lot of effort, right? So what we are now making use of as part of this new feature is the CI people relationship that are very often anyway maintained as part of the CMDB and asset management capability that we have in Remedy, right? So instead of explicitly managing for each CI who the approver is, you can now basically say, I want to have the person approve that's related in a certain relationship type to the CI, right? So when you go to the approval mappings form, where you typically configure the approval rules for applications, you now see two additional options in the menu here. You cannot just define a specific individual or a specific group. You can also say, okay, I want to pick individuals or groups based on their CI relationship, so to speak. And again, that makes it very easy. You can have one generic rule that then would apply to all the different CIs, right? That is supported for changes and releases. And again, you can do this at the individual and at the group level, right? So when you select those entries in the menu, then in addition, you can pick which relationship type you want to use to determine the approver, and there are different ones that you can see here, right? So, for example, you can say, hey, whoever is related with the approved by relationship needs to approve a change for this CI at a certain stage of the change request, right? Or whoever is the support or the owner of the CI is related basically with the owned by relationship would need to approve a release, at certain stages of the release lifecycle, right? And again, instead of managing these individually, you just define that rule once, and then it will apply to all the CIs that are attached to a change or a release. So something that will significantly reduce the effort. We certainly have seen, some of our customers do this through customizations even today. But now this is an official feature as part of the 9.104 release, right? Okay. So as mentioned in the beginning, I do want to give a little bit of a heads up into 2 new releases that are lined up for the next few days. So very close in to releasing the remaining pieces of our Remedy fall release cycle. Most specifically, I want to talk about the new capability in our Smart IT user experience component for Remedy. So one of the feedback that we heard from customers, and many of you, provided very positive feedback about, the usage of Smart IT. It looks great. The users have very positive feedback on it, right? But a lot of our customers have said we need to have more flexibility around tailoring the UI according to the customizations that they've made in the Remedy system, right? And while Smart IT always had some capability for UI tailoring, right? You could always add custom fields to the screen, define custom actions, etc. It didn't go quite far enough. And for many of our customers, that was a criteria for waiting with the adoption of Smart IT, right? And they couldn't take advantage of the productivity gains and the user satisfaction gains that they'll get with Smart IT, right? So to address this, we have very strongly focused on that topic for our upcoming Smart IT release, right? This is by far the most important focus for that release. We have a few other enhancements lined up, but by far the biggest focus of our development effort went into expanding the UI configuration capabilities for Smart IT in this upcoming release. And specifically, what we're doing is around dynamic expressions to basically dynamically drive field properties and values based on other data on the ticket. So you can use that, for example, to make a field required in the UI, not just with filter logic, but in the UI you can make the field required dynamically based on certain other information. Let's say, based on the status of a change, a certain field would be required or read-only, right? A common use case that we've heard from customers that they wanted to represent that in the UI. And again, we can also set field values, so to speak, through that same mechanism. So again, we focused on the most important use cases that we heard from customers. Also in this upcoming release, those capabilities around dynamic expressions and field placements are focused around incident and change records, the records that are most commonly used on the Smart IT side, right? So again, it's about these dynamic expressions to change the behavior or the field values. There's much more flexibility around the placement of the fields in the UI. So, before it was only possible to add them into specific sections. Now we have much more flexibility around field placement, including hiding some of the out-of-the-box fields, again, for the supported record types, right? And then we have enhancements around the provider actions, concept that we had introduced earlier, but now you can use input and output of these provider actions that basically are executing workflow on the Remedy server. And then last but not least, something that has been requested very often is the ability to add custom fields as columns in the ticket console as well as in filters, right? So you have much more flexibility now to define filters and save them as presets, and to define columns based on any custom field on your ticket, so to speak, right? So again, significant step forward. Does it cover everything that Meteor does? No. It also does not yet cover every record type, so that's something that we'll look at for the next release cycle. But it is a significant step forward and gives you much more flexibility to tailor the UI logic in addition to what you could always do in terms of filtering and enforcing certain things on the server side, right? I mentioned before that there's other enhancements. Again, even though UI configurability was the big focus, and again, you'll hear much more about this once the release is out. We'll have another webinar that focuses specifically around the Smart IT release. This is just a brief heads up, right? Again, the other enhancement area is around performance. So we made a number of changes around the user interaction that will lead to even better performance of the Smart IT user experience when it comes to changing the filter logic for your ticket console. When it comes to global search, there are certain changes in the user interactions that will make sure that you see a much improved performance in the Smart IT UI. So that, of course, is a release that a lot of Remedy customers are eagerly waiting for, but there's even more exciting stuff coming, and that is a new add-on offering that we are close to releasing specifically for Remedy customers to address the service management challenges in a multi-cloud, multi-provider world. And let me explain a little bit of what this is here. Many companies have moved away from delivering everything in-house or, outsourcing the entire IT organization to an external provider, which was a fashionable thing to do at some point in time. But they have moved to something that is called multi-sourcing very often, or working basically with multiple external providers, many of them in the cloud, and they're using those external services as part of delivering the IT services to the employees of the organization, right? And again, many companies, including BMC, have a SaaS-first strategy. So if there are SaaS applications out there that we can make use of, BMC does it, and many other companies too. In fact, the majority, I think it's around almost 80% of companies have a multi-cloud scenario. So they have some systems and applications running in-house and some in the public cloud. There's private cloud, there's SaaS services. There's a variety of clouds, basically, and that is a reflection of what most IT organizations look like these days, right? That, in turn, has an impact on pretty much all of the ITSM processes, right? So you have to think about, how do I discover what applications run in my public cloud infrastructure, for example, so that I can build my service model, right? How do I get information about releases that this vendor does, this cloud provider, for example, and how do I manage that from a change and release management perspective in-house? Because even if you're not responsible for the cloud service, for the upgrade itself, or for the new release, I should say, you're still responsible for the risk assessment, etc. And so it's best practice to still manage such a cloud service release as a change or release within the Remedy ITSM system, right? What do I do if I get a ticket into the service desk and it turns out to be an issue with the cloud provider, right? How do I broker that out to the provider? How do I monitor the service levels of my providers? How can I get knowledge from the provider into my knowledge base? So there's really a variety of challenges that reflect the adjustments to ITSM processes as companies move to such a multi-provider, multi-cloud landscape, right? There's frameworks to address this, right? A common one, specifically in Europe, is called SIAM, Service Integration and Management. But the underlying challenges basically apply whether you follow a certain framework or not, right? And that is something that we've seen more and more grow in our customer base, right? So Remedy customers have always found ways how to handle some of these challenges. They even today, they forward tickets to a provider, but we want to make this, because it's growing, that approach is growing so much, we want to make it easier for customers to address that. And in order to make that easier, we provide a new multi-cloud service management service, an add-on for our Remedy customers. And there's a couple of use cases that we are supporting in that initial release. So first of all, that multi-cloud service management capability is a cloud solution. It's basically a hub. You can consider it like a hub in the cloud, which will connect to your Remedy systems, whether it's on-premise or running Remedy SaaS, right? And then it also connects to the ticketing system of these external vendors, and we support a number of them with this initial release, for example, Amazon, AWS, or Salesforce, right? And so what you can do with this capability is when an incident comes into your service desk and it turns out to be an issue with those external services like Amazon, AWS, the multi-cloud service would automatically pick it up and broker it to the ticketing system of AWS, so that you don't have to go in and manually enter this issue in the AWS system, right? And not only does it broker it out, it also, synchronizes the service status. The status of the ticket. It synchronizes. It enables collaboration between the cloud provider and yourself with the Remedy system. So it adds a lot of additional things, right? And in addition, it provides a new dashboard capability where you can see in a very concise way, how your external service is performing, right? In terms of availability, in terms of how many tickets you had to send over, in terms of, what notifications were sent over, right? So again, very exciting new capability. One of the cool things is that it's fully integrated into the Smart IT experience. So not only do we, again, send the ticket over, but once the ticket has been created, and this example here uses AWS as the target, right? Once the ticket has been created within Amazon's ticketing system or support system, right? You will see, that information about the external ticket within the context of the original Remedy ITSM ticket, so to speak, right? So you'll see information about the ticket ID, when it was last updated, etc. That's the part on the left side in the red box here, and that provides, again, additional info. You don't always have to go to the external support system of Amazon, right? And then in addition, it also allows you to collaborate. So when you go to the nodes area and you enter a node, you have a checkbox that says share with provider, right? In this case, AWS, and it will basically broker that work info node to the provider and add that to the ticket there, and vice versa. When the provider responds with a comment, you'll see that here as well. So again, it goes beyond just forwarding the ticket. It's fully integrated into the UI, enables collaboration, enables visibility, and that overall makes the service desk agent that uses Remedy and the Smart IT experience extremely productive. They don't have to do this swivel chair, right, between the system. Now, the second use case here is that we also use that same capability, then multi-cloud service management hub, so to speak, to broker information into agile software development tools. And in that first release, we are focusing on brokering things into Jira. All right. So in a similar way, you can continue to work within your Smart IT user interface, but you're able to again create Jira tickets from Remedy incidents. And then the second use case is that once you have user stories in Jira that describes what comes in a new release, you're able to automatically create Remedy change requests in Remedy. And again, similar to the ticket brokering scenario, you have transparency into the information that sits out into the external system, so you don't always have to switch UIs to go here and there, right? Very, very exciting capability. So again, that's a quick heads up about those two new capabilities that are coming, and I have a reference to the webinars. There's two more webinars lined up that specifically talk about these new capabilities, both Smart IT and multi-cloud. So definitely recommend that you check out the Connect with Remedy webinar sites for information when these webinars are scheduled, right? So to wrap up the presentation, again, just a reminder again, lots of exciting things in the fall release cycle. We continue to innovate the ITSM user experience, not just with building a nice web UI, but really introducing new innovative concepts for the target personas that we're going after, right? And again, the Smart IT portion of that, comes in a few days, right? We're introducing a brand new multi-cloud service management capability that enables, ticket brokering to external providers, that enables, integrations with agile software development tools to support your DevOps processes, and that provides a very quick insight into the health of your external services through this dashboard, right? We are starting to build in cognitive capabilities into Remedy. One of the use cases that we're implementing end-to-end is ITSM ticket classification or categorization, I should say, auto categorization based on a machine learning algorithm. But as Rick mentioned, you can, that's fully integrated into the platform, so you can make use of that even for custom forms. And then last but not least, we continue to deliver significant value add for the platform by improving the zero downtime for the platform, by making it much, much simpler to deploy patches through this new deployment package approach, including binaries, right? By enabling a very simple centralized configuration of logging in a complex server group. And, we've shared that we are also in the community sharing this server group administration console very soon, right? We're introducing improvements around ITSM applications, whether it's, approval rules based on people CI relationships or, dev to prod for task groups and task templates. So overall, again, significant investment into making it easier and, less costly for you to operate and administrate a Remedy environment, right? And you continue to see us focus on these large blocks in future releases, as I mentioned, with a 6-month release cycle, right? So to wrap up the presentation, just a few references to additional material that is out there. First, the 2 webinars that I already mentioned, right, are lined up for February and March. I think there's another webinar scheduled for January for our new business workflow solution. But again, the new Smart IT release and multi-cloud service management release are lined up for Connect with Remedy webinars afterwards in February and March. And again, definitely recommend that you go on these pages and register accordingly. And then what we already have posted are recordings that are going into even more detail than what we provided today around some of the key capabilities for Remedy 9.104, specifically around the deployment management, deployment application, or D2P, as we sometimes refer to it here in the presentation, right? Around zero downtime for the platform and around the logging configuration, right? So those are, these recordings are already available today, so we definitely recommend that you go and use those to get additional insights. There's just not enough time in one session to do a deep dive on every one of these topics, right? I do want to remind everybody that there is information, lots of detailed information out there in the release notes for the different components, the overall ITSM suite. You can use that as a starting point, and then there's pointers to the various components. Air system seem to be single sign-on ITSM applications, right? So those really are a comprehensive description of all the features, right? We had to focus on the key ones here in the presentation today, but there's additional enhancements in the 9.104 release in the various areas, right? So with that, we'll have a bit more time for questions. I can see that the question and answer session, the section here in WebEx has been very busy. I think we're at 107 questions here, and that's great, this kind of engagements, but we do want to offer asking verbal questions as well.
Hi, Peter. This is Alan Morgan from NASDAQ. How are you?
Hey, how are you doing, Alan?
Not too bad. I have a question about timing of the updates when we do the Smart IT 2.0. One, just to double check, all the configuration updates you make with the new Smart IT UI features, they will flow down to the mobile clients. and that's true. Yes?
Yes. Again, that's one of the reasons why we needed to develop a very specific approach, right? This expression-based approach. It's the simplicity of the approach compared to how we handle this with active links in the mid-tier, right? And the second part is that in the smart IT world, you always have to apply this to the different UI form factors, right? The UC, the web version, so to speak, as well as the mobile version. But yes, those changes, like what you define in the expressions, would reflect on the mobile client, right? There are limitations in some areas, like the ticket console, I believe, has always been somewhat limited on the mobile client because you have challenges just showing a large number of columns, right? So some of these restrictions would still apply, but the core, tailoring capability with the expressions, etc., would apply to mobility as well. Right?
Okay, related to that is, if we don't update our mobile packages right away and we go up to Smart IT 2.0, will it break? Will the mobile clients break? Sometimes we have a timing lag between what we do on the back end stuff and what we do in our mobile packages. And I want to make sure I understand the timing that we have to have in order to make sure that things keep working.
So in the past, we had supported, so to speak, backwards compatibility, in that you had, were able to work with, as far as I know. But I'd have to validate that, whether that still applies, because it's a more fundamental shift in Smart IT. That's one of the reasons why we used the version number 2.0 to really, highlight that this is not just a small change, it's a significant change, right? So I'm not quite sure whether that applies. I'd have to clarify that, unless somebody's on the call that could answer this from the Smart IT team.
That's okay. I mean, of course, we're going to test it.
It doesn't seem so, yeah. So we'll post that as part of the question and answers in the community. We'll have to follow up on that. I don't want to give you the wrong information on that. Thank you.
We'll go to our next caller.
Hi, this is Rich. I was just curious if there's still, with this new version, if it's available to have direct access to the smart reporting, or if you still have to go through either Smart IT or the mid-tier.
The access to smart reporting hasn't changed, right? So the user first has to authenticate either in Smart IT or mid-tier, and then you can transfer over to the Smart Reporting UI. That part hasn't changed.
Hey, hi, this is Sanket. Am I audible?
Hey, how are you doing? Yeah.
Yeah, so basically I had a question on multi-cloud. So basically I have seen a couple of we can say, research being done. For example, we have CLM for AWS, Azure, then we have Service Broker where the same capabilities are there. Again, we have something in ADDM where multi-cloud discoveries can be made and those assets can be discovered. So now, and the today's session, so it's completely fragmented, and I don't have any common picture across, because the thing is, we do have a business units who has a capability like they can go to AWS console and provision the VMs. So that's a good case they have. But to bring the business to the BMC platform, I need to present a single view that can connect to all these dots, and that I can't see anywhere. So that's the thing, problem from my side, how to connect all these dots from cloud perspective.
Yeah. No, I can answer that. So yes, definitely multi-cloud is a significant shift for many of our customers, right, as they move workloads into the cloud, etc. And so it does apply to many different capabilities within the bigger BMC portfolio, right? It's not just for service management, right? It is about discovery. It is about, cost management. It's a cloud monitoring. Every, product area, so to speak, that represents what BMC provides, has a multi-cloud strategy. That's definitely true. And that's no surprise. I mean, that's the same for any other big technology shift, right? It ultimately affects all of the different components that BMC offers in the portfolio, right? So I disagree that this is all, disconnected, right? It's very clear that these products work very well together. If you do, for example, discovery in the cloud, which we introduced with our discovery component, that flows into the CMDB. Then you can build your service model. Then you can make change requests, right? Then you can connect to Jira. These things all flow together as they have always done when we were talking about on-premise IT environments, right? The different BMC solutions work very well together. And the same applies for multi-cloud, right? So yes, the different components have added those capabilities, and of course they all emphasize it as it's a major shift in how customers handle their IT organization. But the focus of BMC to make sure that all these components work very well together, that applies in the same way, right? In fact, I would say that BMC has by far the best integrated IT operations management solution out there, where you can combine monitoring, service management, configuration automation, job scheduling. I mean, all of these things together, right? That's really the power of BMC, and that applies to multi-cloud as well, right? So we'll be happy to, explain that a bit further with you. I suggest that you contact
Only requirement is, perhaps if there is a use case can be published over a BMC, because there are, a lot of good things are there in BMC platform, but if there are good use cases with respect to this cloud provisioning, if that can be built, and that will connect all these pieces, for example, the one you said right just now, and that will, so that will be helpful. That's the only one ask from my side. If it is already available, then it's fine. Good, thanks for that.
Yeah. So again, you could easily say, I use, for example, I use Digital Workplace to request a new cloud service. It can be auto-provisioned, whether you go through CLM or some other mechanism, right? And once it's provisioned, you can discover the applications that run on it. You bring it into the CMDB. You can do change management. I mean, all these things are well connected. So I'll take your feedback that maybe we need to do a better job at talking about it as one holistic solution, but they're definitely well connected, and BMC offers already a variety of these multi-cloud capabilities across different product lines. Right?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Hi, my question was regarding the upgrade roadmap, or rather the roadmap for the Remedy ITSM tool itself, with the Innovation suite being on the horizon. So will the releases for ITSM continue patch mode as they have been for the last 4 now, or will there be like a major release coming forward as well?
Yeah, I can take that. So first of all, as I mentioned in the beginning, we are shifting our release approach a bit away from the major minor service pack approach onto saying we deliver feature releases every 6 months, right? And those are fairly easy to adopt. So starting next year, we even plan to use a different terminology, because once you use, 9104 or 00, etc., right, people typically have preconceived notions of what type of release it is. So we're even considering changing the release terminology, right? And so there's no major release plan, no service pack plans. What we're planning are feature releases every 6 months on a regular basis. And again, from a BMC portfolio perspective, Remedy is the solution for, core ITSM capabilities, right? Including, of course, the evolutions into, digital service management and cognitive service management. So for the core ITSM domain, BMC continues to invest heavily into Remedy, and you can see here, right, that we are ramping up again much into developing new features. We built a new CMDB UI, we deliver platform enhancements, etc. Right? So BMC will continue to accelerate the implementation of new features and roll those out every 6 months for you, right? Both at the platform as well as the application layer. But again, don't think about it as coming or wait for a future major release, right? We're not planning for a Remedy 10 release or anything. What we say is, we'll plan a release in around end of May 2018, and then correspondingly 6 months later, in that spring and fall release cycle, basically, right? That's roughly the cycle that we're looking at, and we just call it the spring release and the fall release, right? You shouldn't have to worry about whether it's a major or a minor or service pack release, right? In the end, you want new capabilities, we deliver them, and hopefully we'll do a good job at making that very easy to consume, right? And we're convinced that we do.
Well, thank you, Peter and Rahul and Rick, for the great presentation. At this time, we will be wrapping up this month's webinar. And just wanted to present the ways to contact BMC via the social means, as well as technical support through our web, phone, email, or website. And this concludes this month's Connect with Remedy. Thank you.